All right, so when you think about the 12 disciples, what comes to mind? Probably something like this, right? You've got these calm faces, maybe some halos, the classic saints in stained glass look. But let me tell you, the real story, it's way stranger, way more human, and honestly, a whole lot more interesting.
I mean, here's the absolute truth about the crew Jesus put together. They just weren't the best men in Israel. They weren't the most spiritual guys, not the most educated, and for sure not the most qualified. This was not some kind of spiritual dream team, not even close. So, that leads to the big question, right? How in the world did this team of, well, nobodies, this collection of fishermen, rebels, and doubters, how did they launch what would become the most followed movement in all of human history? That's exactly what we're going to dive into.
Okay, so it all starts with a choice, and it wasn't a quick one. The Gospel of Luke actually tells us that before Jesus even called out a single name, he went up on a mountain and prayed all night long. So this was no random selection. He knew exactly who he was picking.
And this is where you really see the gap between what we think we know and what was really going on. On one side, you have the myth, these perfect holy saints. But the reality? Oh man, the reality was a bunch of fishermen, a tax collector who literally worked for the enemy, a political radical who wanted to overthrow that same enemy, and a bunch of skeptics. What a crew.
And what's really wild is that even the inner circle, the three guys who were closest to Jesus, Peter, James, and John, even they were just so deeply and obviously flawed.
Let's just take Peter, for example. Jesus gave him the nickname the Rock. But honestly, for most of the story, he was anything but stable. One minute he's super bold, and the next he's absolutely terrified. He's this walking contradiction of breathtaking faith and just catastrophic failure. And here you see him at his absolute highest point. It's like this flash of divine insight hits him, and he looks right at Jesus and says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." I mean, it's pretty much the clearest, most powerful confession in all the Gospels. But then, just a little while later, on the night Jesus gets arrested, Peter's huddled by a fire, and he just crumbles. Someone asks him if he knows Jesus, and he says, "I don't know the man." And not just once, 3 times. This is the same guy, just hours apart. The contrast is just staggering.
Then you've got James and John. Their nickname was the Sons of Thunder, and for good reason. These brothers had this super fiery ambition. I mean, at one point, they asked Jesus if they could call down fire from heaven to wipe out a village that didn't welcome them. And get this, they even tried to get their mom to ask Jesus for the best seats in his kingdom. Talk about ambitious.
But it wasn't just about big personalities. The group also had guys in it who, in any other situation, would have been mortal enemies. And this is where the team Jesus put together gets truly radical.
So just think about this for a second. On one side of the table, you've got Matthew. He's a tax collector. That means he works for Rome, and everybody despises him as a traitor. On the other side of the table is Simon the Zealot. He's a political radical who wants to overthrow Rome. I mean, these guys should hate each other. They're on completely opposite ends of the political spectrum. But Jesus puts them at the same table. Their new allegiance to him had to become way bigger than their political hatred for each other. It's incredible.
And it doesn't stop there. The group also had its fair share of honest skeptics, and even guys who were so quiet they almost fade into the background of the story. So this was definitely not some monolithic group of yes men. You had guys like Nathaniel, right? His very first reaction to hearing about Jesus was basically a sarcastic joke. Can anything good come from Nazareth? Then you've got Thomas, who famously said he wouldn't believe in the resurrection unless he could literally poke the holes with his own fingers. And what about Andrew, James the Less, and Thaddeus? These were the quiet guys, always kind of in the background. It just goes to show you, you didn't have to be a son of thunder to have a seat at that table. So, okay, you have this flawed, divided, and super unlikely group of people. How on earth did they change the world? Well, the answer, and honestly, the ultimate proof of what they truly believed, isn't found in how they lived, it's found in how they died. No, seriously, think about this. Every single one of these guys had a super easy way out. When faced with torture and execution, all they had to do was say, "You know what, we lied. We made the whole thing up. The resurrection never happened." That's it. And not one of them, not one, ever took that deal. And we're talking about brutal, brutal deaths. Tradition tells us that Peter was crucified upside down because he didn't feel worthy to die the same way as Jesus. Andrew supposedly preached for 2 whole days while he was tied to an X-shaped cross. Bartholomew was skinned alive. Thomas was speared to death in India. And Simon the Zealot, he was reportedly sawed in half. I mean, it's just horrific.
And see, this is the crucial point. This is what makes their deaths so powerful. They weren't dying for something somebody told them. They were dying for something they said they personally witnessed with their own 2 eyes. If the whole resurrection thing was a lie, well, they were the ones who made it up. And people just don't willingly go through these kinds of horrific deaths for something they know is a complete fabrication.
So all of this brings us to their legacy. A legacy that was built from the ground up by a group of absolute nobodies. Just think about what they were working with. They had no money to fund a movement. They had no armies to go conquer territory. They had 0 political power to influence anybody. The only thing they had was a story. A story about a carpenter from a backwater town who came back from the dead.
And what was the result of that one story? Well, today there are about 2.4 billion Christians in the world, and all of that, every bit of it, traces right back to this small, totally unqualified group of guys.
And that, right there, gets to the absolute heart of it all. Their story was never about them being perfect or having the right qualifications. Not at all. It was a story about transformation. It was about how their weaknesses, their flaws, their failures became the very building blocks of a world-changing movement.
And that leaves us with a pretty powerful question, doesn't it? What happens when ordinary people, people just like them, people just like you and me, are transformed by an extraordinary mission? Well, the world changes.